What's going on, y'all? You're now watching the greatest channel that has ever existed. My name is Bitcoin Benito, and I truly appreciate you guys for being here with me. So in my previous video, I had an interview where I showed an interview with Michael Saylor that he did with 𝘊𝘺𝘺𝘺, where he talks about how cryptocurrency and specifically Bitcoin is a lot more valuable than the regular fiat and why people should get into it and why it's absolutely stupid, it's foolish to not get into cryptocurrency. So here's the second part of the video. Let's get into it. It's kind of fast right now, so just pay attention. Maybe you need to slow it down a little bit. But I'm trying to make these videos about, less than 12 minutes. So that's why I'm making the video speed a little bit faster. Just pay attention. You should be fine. Okay, let's listen.
America won every war, right? We were the winner of World War I. We got richer. We were the winner of World War II. We never lost a war. We were the winners of the century. Our currency lost 99.9% of its economic power over the 100 years. But if you went to Nigeria, or like Germany, the currency crashed like two or three times, right? In Japan, the currency crashed, In Russia, it crashed last time the Russian currency crashed in 98. The Brazilian currency crashed completely 25 years ago. The Argentine currency crashed about 4 times in 100 years. So if you're an Argentinian and you're 30 years old, you already know what it's like to have hyperinflation because you lived the entire cycle. It's just Americans don't. And so if you're taking advice from an American business person like Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, well, I mean, they didn't live through the Weimar Republic. They didn't live through the collapse of the current. By the way, the currency collapsed in Venezuela. It collapsed in Argentina. It collapsed in Brazil. It collapsed in Cuba. It collapsed in Russia. It collapsed in every single country in Africa. You see? And so foreigners actually get it a bit better, right? It's like the bank's going to take your money. The currency's going to zero. The government's going to promise you it'll be okay and tell you to put your money in the bank. Then they're going to inflate the currency, freeze your bank account, crash the currency, and then tell you it's worthless. That's what.
And this is the problem with living in America or one of the new Western countries, the valuable Western countries that have a lot of a very high level of GDP, is that we are spoiled. We think that everything is going to be hunky-dory for the foreseeable future. We've never had a really major recession since the 1930s. I know people complain about the Great Recession or maybe the bear bug recession that we also had, but that was nothing in comparison to the Great Depression that happened about 90 years ago now. So people have actually experienced this themselves. My parents are from Nigeria. I'm Nigerian myself. The Naira itself has lost about 90% of its value in comparison to the dollar. This is in addition to the dollar losing about 7% of its value every single year. But ever since its inception, the Naira has lost between 90 to 95% of its value, and it continues to decrease. A lot of other cryptocurrency, or a lot of other fiat currencies, have lost its value. The peso has lost its value. The Argentinian fiat has lost its value. The Russian fiat also lost its value. But the only thing that has increased in value is cryptocurrency, and specifically Bitcoin, that has increased about 100% every single year. And because we are spoiled in our Western countries, we don't care. We don't pay attention to this. Ask all your friends and family right now. There's like maybe 1 or 2 that have bought some cryptocurrency or Bitcoin right now, but they say stupid things like it's losing its value. I heard that it crashes all the time, which is true, but that's because they are ignorant on how the Bitcoin value works. And I don't mean ignorant in a negative way. I'm just saying that they don't know that Bitcoin goes through its 4-year cycles and is pretty much guaranteed to explode in value by the end of this year. Okay, so let's listen to Michael as he talks about why this is the best asset that has ever existed in the history of mankind. Hey, what's going on, guys? I just want to pause the video for 1 second to tell you about my new course, Crypto Confident, okay? Where I make about 300% every 90 days. Now, is this guaranteed to happen? I'm not necessarily a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, but this is very, very likely to happen. And I'm going to show you the exact way to do this step by step. I have 4-5 hours worth of video where I go through the entire process. And you don't even have to watch the whole 5 hours, okay? But I quickly show you how you could make as much money as me. And I also show you how you can avoid scams like Sam Bankman-Fried. Look at the website right here. It's very elegant, very quick, very easy to understand. And I show you step by step how to not lose your money. I show you when to buy and exactly when to sell. Okay. And it's very, very easy throughout the entire process. You need to get into this as quickly as possible. It's 2025 now. You have a very limited amount of time to make all this money. So just go to bitcoinbenito.com right now, bitcoinbenito.com right now. Put in your email so you can get as rich as me. Okay. Let's get this money.
Happened in Cyprus not too long ago, if you want to go and Google that. And so the real promise of Bitcoin is very simple. It's a bank in cyberspace that won't steal your money. And it's an asset that you can store your life savings in that nobody can debase or corrupt. And those are 2 powerful promises for the first time in the history of the human race. No one ever gave you those 2 promises ever before now.
Yeah, the thing that, and a lot of this started with me getting to know you, researching cryptocurrency, realizing the just absolute devastation that even in America is happening with inflation, and understanding this difference that you're now talking about in a really clear fashion, that until I started researching you for this episode, I never heard you delineate it this way, that money is bifurcated into those two elements. You've got the money that you spend, cool, but then you've got the money that you're trying to preserve your wealth over time. When I tell people the way you should think about your house is not something that's going to go up in value over time. You should think of your house as something that you pay an insurance policy against, the upkeep, the property tax, as a way to match inflation, which is unless your area becomes disproportionately desirable, and that does happen. So like Austin went up in value because people just flooded into that area. But for the most part, what you're going to see is actually just keeping up with inflation. That as the dollar is devalued, it looks like the price and the value of your house is going up, but it's really not. Now,
I think that's fair, by the way. I think that's...
Yeah, so when it comes to buying houses, never, ever, ever buy a house unless you're going to rent out some of the rooms, or you're going to have someone else living there with you, like a spouse or a business partner or something like that. That's because the value of your house only increases about maybe 4% a year, maybe 7% a year if you live in a good area. But the amount of money that you spend in upkeep for this house, like your taxes, like paying for the lawn, like for in case your water heater breaks. My water heater broke and I had to pay about $3,000. And this was on a new house, brand new house. And I still had to pay about $3,000, right? That's because I didn't have homeowner's insurance. But if I had homeowner's insurance, right, I would have still had to pay about between $300 and $250 every single month. So no matter what, I would have still had to pay a lot more money than rent, right? So you have to worry about paying your own bills, and then you have to actually fix it yourself, right? You have to hire someone that's actually going to fix it yourself, okay? So it's actually not worth it. The only way that you can make some money is if you have some tenants into your house, or you can cut the cost of the housing in half itself, okay? And taxes are very expensive. I think that's what he's about to talk about right now.
That's definitely a good way to think of it.
Yeah, I think so. My own company, when I start talking about this stuff, my employees look at me a little bit like I'm crazy because I'm so aggressive about getting people to understand, and it'll be very interesting to have this conversation with you, that ultimately the stock market is gambling. And once you understand that people have been forced to become gamblers based on inflation, that you have to find a way to outpace inflation, otherwise you lose your money. And the really smart among us look at the capital system, look at the equities market, and they go, oh, cool, I have a really complex way that I can find arbitrage basically in these moments where if I find an area of risk that I think I understand better than the next person, I can come in, I can buy that asset, it goes up in value compared to what I can sell it for down the road, and I'm able to sell it for a bigger win than inflation. And that forces everyone to play that game or to just have their buying power stripped away from them, which of course is what happens to the vast majority of, call it normal to undereducated. They're just going to get eaten alive because they don't have the time, energy, or intellect to figure out this relatively complicated game. Okay, so with all of that as the structure of why even the average person...
And that's the crazy part, right? The crazy part is that people view regular stocks as stable because all your 401k value, and 401ks are good too, right? Because your job is going to double your money, whatever you put in. But they still invest that 401k value into the stocks. And they put it into stocks that are good. And it's kind of like smart form of gambling. Like, let's say that you're really good at playing blackjack. There's some intelligence that's needed to play blackjack. But you're still only winning about 4 to 7% of the time, or maybe even 15% of the time. Let's say that you invest into an ETF that's actually going really good. Maybe there's only about, between 4 to 15% of the time that you're going to win the blackjack, okay? But there's like 50% chance that you're going to lose everything. 70% chance that you're going to lose everything, right? Same thing with blackjack, same thing with stocks, okay? So even this good thing that you're investing in is still way more dangerous than cryptocurrency because, again, Bitcoin has increased in value by about 100%, between 70 to 100% every single year, right? Over the course of 4 years, right? It's not every single year because we go up and down. But over the long term, it has increased on average 70 to 100% every single year since its inception. Bitcoin is not new, okay? It's been around for 16 years. Bitcoin is an adult, right? Bitcoin has legal consent in like 90% of the states that's in America, right? Which is a kind of a messed up way to think about it. But Bitcoin has an adult consent when it comes to adult relations, if you know what I mean, okay? So it is not young. It is very old. It is very mature.
Should care about this to a screaming degree. There's an idea that you say, but you go by quickly, that I think if people understood, it's really going to help them. So you've said, I want to see the entire world recapitalize in Bitcoin. Now, when you say recapitalize, is what you mean, hey, that part of your wealth that you want to store to maintain purchasing power over time, all of that, instead of being in real estate, instead of being in treasuries, instead of being in equities, that should move over to Bitcoin? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah, you've articulated that quite well. Yes, build your house on a firm foundation. Don't build it on sinking sand. Don't build it on a swamp. Build it on a granite rock, on schist. And I guess if I could give the math, the risk-free rate of the dollar, if you're capitalized on US dollars and you were to say buy treasury bonds, the risk-free rate is something close to SOFR, or the standard overnight funding rate. And that ranges, but after you get paid that rate and you get taxed on it, you might get paid 5%, you get to keep 3% after tax. Maybe if you're tax-free, you get 4.5%, and if you're taxed, you get 3%. So the risk-free rate of return of your capital on that dollar standard is like in the 3% range. The risk-free rate for Bitcoin, as I just described it to you, 29% over 21 years, about 30%. So the way I look at investments is when you're pitching me an investment idea, I say, well, I've got a lot of money in Bitcoin, and I'm expecting about 30% risk-free for the next 20 years. You have to actually pitch me an idea that generates more than 30%, plus the risk premium, plus the tax efficiency. If you told me, here's a thing that will make me 50% a year, but it was going to be taxable, that might be 40% a year or 35% a year. And I'm like, well, after the risk, it's still not as good as my risk-free rate of 30%.
That's the insane part. So even if you do find a stock or investment that's worth more than Bitcoin, as he says, and he says that it's going to increase by about 30% over the next 21 years, okay? Because in the past, it's increased by about 70 to 100% every single year. In the next 30 years, this is going to increase by 30%. Okay, sorry, in the next 21 years, it's going to increase by 30%. And the amount of risk that's in it is very, very low. It's pretty much non-existent, right? So even that is not as good as, even that is way, way better than a regular investment or a new business or something like that, okay? And this is why cryptocurrency is absolutely amazing. This is why nothing is ever going to slow down cryptocurrency. It's only going to explode in value and price. And I'm telling you this because I thank you, I love you, I appreciate you. Let's get this money.